Walt Disney.
Yes.
Beloved figure of our pop culture.
That's how they get you. Yada, yada, yada. She eventually causes her own husband to be burned to death.
And that makes me so happy on cold nights. It especially ended badly for the idiot Peckerwoods.
Have a bottle of scotch. Okay, that's twice that he's mentioned redheads. It is un-American to get in the way of our freedom to restrict people's freedoms. That was the point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know plenty about these things.
But
I love me some Bobby Drake. Yeah, well, if that's all we've got, then we're
darts.
being really lazy.
Yeah. Y'all bone.
You can literally poke a hole in it as soon as someone gets pneumonia. Well, I'm not as old as you.
Well, haha, motherfucker, I got a wizard.
This is a Geek History of Time.
Connecting you to the real world. My name is Ed Blaylock. I'm a world history teacher here in Northern California, getting set to teach my classes in the upcoming school year via the wizardry of the internet. And I am the father of a 2.5-year-old little boy who has now learned enough to be able to say, "It's a mystery." About things he is not quite able to comprehend or explain. And the most wonderful thing about that is he says it with this look of utter philosophical seriousness on his face, and he actually does spooky fingers when he says it.
I'm not sure which parent that apes more.
Yeah, it's a tough call. But yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm Damian Harmony. I am a Latin teacher, feverishly recording, which I think I've said like in the last 4 episodes, content to put up because I don't trust my district to do things the right way. So I'm making sure that I have everything I need to make things asynchronous, that I can also adapt to being synchronous. I have an 8-year-old and a 10.5-year-old. Both of whom are very, very, very into playing the Star Wars West End Games role-playing game now. They started last week. They are decided to be Wookiee twins and Jedi at that. So I set it 4,000 years in the past. So they could actually fight against Sith and like do some force powery stuff.
Nice.
And not just be hunted as escaped Wookiees.
Yeah. No, I like it.
Yeah, they're over the moon about it. So I can't wait to
That's brilliant.
Yeah, unload my bag of tricks on them. So we had a really good first episode.
Which one of them does a better Wookiee growl?
They're both equally terrible at it, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, okay. William does not have an ear for imitation, and Julia does not have. It's funny, he does when it comes to tone, but it doesn't when it comes to actual sound. And Julia, it could be the best in the world at it, but unless she thinks it's perfect, she ain't going to let it out.
Bummer.
So they're both terrible at it. So I just downloaded the Wookiee app because that's a thing that exists in this world. And so, yeah.
Man, see, I actually got told back in high school I was not allowed to play a Wookiee.
Oh, really?
By my circle of gaming friends. Star Wars was, I've talked about this in the past that like, every Friday or Saturday night I was like, all right, we're getting together. What are we going to play?
Right.
All right. Well,
who's going to run it?
Rifts. Yeah. Who's going to run it? Okay. Well, if I'm running it, it's got to be this or this. And when we would play Star Wars, a couple of times I said, come on, just let me play a Wookiee. No. Well, why? Well, come on. Why not? Because we've heard you try to do a Wookiee growl and it hurts. All right, fine.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wound up playing an outlaw, who was the one character I played like consistently over and over and over and over again for like 4 years, whereas everybody else was bringing in kind of one-shot characters.
Sure.
And so my character wound up being the one with the best, stats of anybody in the party.
Naturally.
Because I had all the experience points. And so, by the end of it, even though he essentially refused to accept any kind of official rank within the rebel military. On paper he was like a corporal, but he had the tactical acumen and was essentially given the responsibilities of at least a lieutenant commander, because like no, you know what you're doing. The rest of these guys, they're chumps.
Right.
We're giving you the orders. I was like, okay, cool.
Nice.
But yeah, so we had but yeah, no. So based on that, I have to say that the Wookiee app is cheating.
It is, but I have children,
I feel
so I'm
robbed.
okay cheating for them.
Yeah, okay, right, fine.
So yeah, they're not 15 with their peers; they're 8 and 10 with their dad. So, but I have found that like since we're not allowed to travel anywhere, we could explore in the theater of the mind.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately how it has to be. So.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Yeah, and just because we've completely given up on making things timeless on this show, the wall around the White House exists, number one. It's a thing that I can say without any irony. The wall around the White House is now 13 feet high. The federal troops have actually left Portland, and the protests are remarkably peaceful all of a sudden. No connection there.
Imagine that.
And the president has floated the weather balloon of, maybe we can't have a safe election in November. So that's where we are.
Mr. Trump, I just want to point out, as a teacher of American history, there was an election in 1864.
Yeah, but what was going on there? Come on.
There was an election in 1944.
Yeah, but I mean that. Now, I would actually argue that one was less an existential problem than the one in 1864, when you had an army within 100 miles of the Capitol,
within marching distance of the Capitol.
Yeah.
Yes,
but
granted.
Well done.
Yeah.
I'll give you some leeway on that one.
Sherman, you must be joking.
Oh, don't stonewall me now.
Ooh, nice one. That's a long street you're marching up.
God damn it! I ran out of generals. Man, you really. You really. You know what? You are the steward of all this knowledge. You really are.
Well done. Well played.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Oh.
Now
you've blanked. Oh, I'm McClellan. All your friends. You're gonna be so embarrassed.
Son of a bitch! That was the name I couldn't remember.
Which is funny because he wanted to be president in 1864.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could remember that he was, a popinjay and a poser, and could have ended the war in 62, if I'm remembering the chronology right, and refused to actually assault Richmond because he had a big, beautiful army and didn't want to risk breaking it.
Yes.
Fucking chicken shit. And of course, there's also the fact that he was not exactly pro-Confederate, but not exactly anti-Confederate.
Right. Kind of like, if they want to leave, it's
yeah.
I went to school with these guys,
Yeah. Oh Lord, there. We could probably do so for the audience. Before we started recording tonight, we were looking at what are some ideas for new ideas for the podcast, for episodes we could do. And we're getting to a phase where the ladle is getting very close to the bottom of the barrel.
So send us ideas.
Scraping. So yes, please add us on Twitter with whatever you want to hear us talk about. But I just realized we could spend at least one episode, probably two, just letting me rant about what a fuckwit McClellan was.
I mean, honestly, we could probably look back to any episode that I've done on American history, and I could probably stitch together the times that you did do that and make a whole episode out of it.
Well, not specifically about McClellan. I haven't picked specifically on McClellan yet.
There are a couple times you did.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So we probably got 15 minutes of material there. But
so
yeah, could have ended the war in 62. Just saying. Shithead.
So, so my kids are
Anyway,
playing Star Wars
yeah,
with me.
yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah.
We're getting off the subject. But interestingly, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that your kids are, of course, playing Jedi,
Yes.
and because, like, I mean, come on, that was if I got the opportunity, if I was in a campaign where I could play a Jedi, usually I did.
Yeah, what a shock. The guy who
Yeah,
plays a
the guy
paladin.
who plays a paladin in D&D. Yeah, I know, big surprise. Um, and so with that being the case,
Mm-hmm.
that's appropriate because that's of course what we've been talking about for the last couple of episodes, and that's what I intend to tie up tonight.
Yeah.
Is what the Jedi Order could have been,
Sure.
or what could have been instead of the Jedi Order if George Lucas had known anything about history.
Right.
Because it's always back on George Lucas night here at Geek History of Time.
Oh, absolutely.
We love the universe you created, George, but
Thank you. Now leave.
yeah.
You brought wonderful guacamole. Irish goodbye.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just really quickly to kind of go back over to kind of reintroduce kind of where we've been. The Jedi are, of course, inspired by Jidaigeki, the samurai of what those of us in the West usually would refer to as samurai movies coming out of Japan. That whole genre of period drama, period action flick, which has as one of its branches Chanbara, which is literally sword fight movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there. Chanbara, I would characterize as being the Japanese version of wuxia movies from China.
Okay. Which
It's Japanese version of Chinese martial arts flicks.
I would draw the parallel between those and spaghetti westerns over here in the States, and they're all happening roughly at the same time, aren't they?
Well, okay.
Contemporaneously.
I'm gonna split a hair.
Okay.
With a lightsaber on that, and I'm going to say, rather than dialing it down quite so tightly to specifically spaghetti westerns,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say the Western genre in general.
Fair enough.
Because Enrico Morricone and those guys doing that particular almost exploitation subgenre of the Western is a very specific thing.
That's true. Yeah, it's got very specific beats.
Yeah, from a very specific kind of era of cinema. And I mean, they all are swimming in the same pool.
Yeah.
For lack of a better analogy there. But I think if you're looking for the inspiration for it, you'd be better off looking at Tom Ford, Sam Peckinpah.
Okay.
Or not Tom Ford, John Ford.
John Ford.
All right. John Ford, Sam Peckinpah.
Tom Jones.
Yes.
Tom Collins.
No.
Tom and Jerry.
No. Fucker.
Thomas Jane.
No.
Jane Curtin.
Did an okay job as the Punisher, but no, Jane, you ignorant slut. But if you're looking for inspiration, you'd want to look at it at a timeline or a point in time in the Western genre earlier than Morricone and those guys.
Okay.
Because Kurosawa, really started doing his stuff in the 50s and into the 60s.
Right.
If I'm remembering my timeline right, and the spaghetti westerns were notably later. They had in turn been reinvigorated, re-inspired. They were in turn borrowing visually and cinematically from Chanbara films.
Mm-hmm.
And in that kind of cyclical circular kind of way that all of these genres influence one another. So but the Jidaigeki heroes
Mm-hmm.
were just like the gunslingers of Western stories. They were essentially knights errant.
Mm-hmm.
And we
And
talked in a
and that's
previous
your
episode.
wuxia as well, because
Well, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And we mentioned in one of the last two episodes that
Mm-hmm.
the context, the cultural context for having all of these wandering samurai in a Jidaigeki movie is one of there's been a war, one side won, one side lost. There's a whole bunch of guys who are essentially out of work mercenaries,
Right.
or out of work. They're knights who are now out of work and don't have anybody to work for.
Right.
And they're operating in this weird limbo where they have these privileges because of their class, but they're impoverished and and they don't really have a job.
Mm-hmm. But they do have an
And
internal code that
yes,
then obviates itself by the end of the film.
yeah,
But
yes,
they are wanderers who, I mean, they don't have a centralized authority, whereas before there used to be one.
yes,
Yeah, it's very episode 4. It's very Obi-Wan
yes.
Kenobi in the desert.
Oh yeah, immensely,
Yeah.
immensely. And and so the coming from that set of tropes,
Mm-hmm.
all of the Jedi are trained martial artists.
Right.
They all know how to use a lightsaber. They have the Jedi Code, which is
It's very loosely defined in the films, but it does get
yeah,
canonized later.
yes,
To the point where there's also a Sith code, which also gets canonized
yes,
at the same time. But here's what I love about the Star Wars universe and whatnot. The Let's see if I can do this. George Lucas writes the movies, and then he licenses the book rights, I believe, to Bantam. He tells them flat out, okay, I have full control, creative control over all these characters, but I'm not going to micromanage. Instead, here are the guidelines. Luke can't get married. No permanent romance. You can have him romance, but you better end that romance because I plan to write the sequels. He said that in 91.
oh yeah,
Sequels, not prequels.
mm-hmm.
And you can't kill anybody major. And all the books have to tie together. Then he licenses it out to West End Games, the role playing system, the one that I'm playing with my kids.
Yeah,
He did that in the late 80s, if I recall,
yeah,
maybe the early
yes.
90s. Yeah.
It
And
was late 80s because
okay,
I was playing the second edition
okay,
of the West End game in 91, 92.
okay. So he licenses that. There is an explosion in those books
Oh yeah.
where tons of backfilling information, like they explain to you how the Empire works and all of that was also had to be consistent with what was in the books and the novels. All of it
Mm-hmm.
had to be internally consistent. It couldn't just be whatever. Oh, another rule he had was you cannot ever reveal the race of Yoda. And you can't really do shit with him either. And most of the books were set after
Mm-hmm.
episode 6. And so then in the role-playing games, you had all of this. In fact, the role-playing game is where you first have the name of the planet Coruscant.
Yes.
And then it bounces into Timothy Zahn's book.
Well, and then hold on,
Okay.
because also it's in the role playing game that I first saw anybody actually explain the timeline of how exactly did the Republic fall apart and turn into the Empire,
Yes.
which was in the Imperial, if I'm remembering right, it was
Yep.
in the Imperial source book,
Yeah.
which then also like created and codified the entire fascist inner workings of psyops and
Oh yeah.
all of those, all of the quasi military law
Yeah.
enforcement, secret police arms,
Yep.
multiple secret police arms of the Imperium. And one of those books was actually where a friend of mine in the Star Wars campaign he was playing in actually played a droid character who was SO 3SO
Okay.
from
K2SO.
K2SO,
Mm-hmm.
who a repurposed Imperial droid,
Oh, cool.
and he was specifically a destabilization droid,
Mm-hmm.
with effectively split personality.
Okay.
So most of the time he was happy, fluffy, happy go lucky, and then when anything happened and his switch got flipped, he turned into a murderous computer hacker.
Okay. So you
So,
have all
but
of
anyway,
those books
and all of that
backfilling
stuff.
what's going on
Yeah.
in the novels, and then he licenses out to Dark Horse, the comic books,
Yes.
and they decide what happened 4,000 years ago. And that's where
Yes.
you see the codification of the Jedi Code. There is no ignorance. There is the Force. There is no, da 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 da. It's and then because of that, there's the Sith Code, and there is no weakness. There's the this, and then that code, and that all of this is part of the books and part of the EU, and people started categorizing Lucas canon, movie canon, book canon, like, because sometimes like I said, he lets us play in his driveway and sometimes he backs over our
Yeah.
toys. But the best part though is that when he had Dave Filoni doing the Clone Wars cartoon,
Yeah.
the most recent Clone Wars cartoon, when you meet Darth Maul, he is reciting the Sith code, which you can find in the old comics.
Oh,
and there's so many things, and that's before Lucas sold it to Disney. Then once Lucas sold it to Disney was like, okay, that's all legends, but then they start plucking the best parts and just kind of reskinning them. But Darth Maul reciting the old Sith code was always just a huge thing to me. I was like, oh my God. It's like the name of Coruscant being in episode 1. You're like, oh my God, they're legitimizing the books.
Oh yeah.
But then further, because this is the Sith code, and he's talking about being a Sith, and it was really cool. So, I'm sorry, but the Jedi code thing, they have the internal code,
Yeah.
it's canonized.
And what I was going to say about the Jedi Code is the parts of it that are most clearly inspired by Lucas or ode to Lucas are, Cracker Jack box Buddhism.
Yeah, the patchouli smelling Buddhism.
Yeah, without any context attached to it, and
like
now we're
empty
getting
cones.
into. Yeah, yes, I like it. And now we're getting to kind of where, again, we have all of the stuff that got backfilled
right
in all of these other areas, and then it got picked back up. And in this particular case, it got picked up by Lucas and turned into what the Jedi Order looks like in the prequels.
Right.
And the funny thing is, we have the Jedi, Geki, knights, who are clearly inspired by the image and the perception and the mythologization. Harry Potter. Sorry, had a Stephen Fry moment there. But the myth making of the wandering Ronin, very clearly inspired what Obi-Wan's talk about the Jedi in the original trilogy looked like. And then we have all this other stuff get developed and all this great, wonderful, backstory. And then we wind up seeing the Jedi Order show up.
Right.
And it winds up being this very hard left turn.
Well,
to what they were, like what they were described as being, and how they operate as an organization.
And I think part of that is because the source material that Lucas had to go on was a few lines that he had written and Alec Guinness had delivered, and a few lines that Yoda had delivered, and a few lines that that Frank Oz, and a few lines that yeah.
Okay.
But there's a few lines strung throughout the original trilogy. That's all you got to go on. And he's thinking, what everybody would like is for him to sound like Polly the Puma, apparently.
Apparently.
Oh my God.
Was that supposed to be Kermit?
Or George Lucas or Harold Ramis or Polly the Puma or, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Imagine having a debate with them.
George, oh God, must I?
But what I was going to say is you have him saying, everybody would like is to pay off what those things were. So here you got a glimpse. They were the force of civilization for 1,000 generations. What does that look like? Well, you only heard that, so then he gets to backfill it with whatever he wants. Ergo, he goes back to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But he does,
And
in some ways, he is pinned into his own writing, including the part where he says, when I first met your father, he was already an accomplished pilot. That's so wizard Annie, but
yeah, oh God, yeah,
and
yeah,
all that, but like, so
yeah.
you had to somewhat stick to or shoehorn into, the fact that a 10-year-old said, I'll try spinning. That's a neat trick. And then he blew
I
up.
think, yeah, I think shoehorning is a better one. Shoehorning is a better verb there.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, we could spend an awful lot of time talking about the narrative failures kind of involved in the way he went about doing that. I totally understand the logic behind the decisions that he made
Mm-hmm.
in on that level. You're right. That was
Yeah.
like, okay, now I'm going to pay off this little bit. This is what this looks like.
Right.
But as I mentioned before, if he had been a little bit more, number one, open to the other stuff people had written about the Jedi, the
True.
whole Exar Kun saga and the way
Yep.
tutelage worked from master to pupil and decentralized structure in the 4,000 5,000 years before the Republic,
Mm-hmm.
or before Yavin. If he had paid attention to that, he could have gone with something that looked like that spun forward, a couple of thousand years.
Mm-hmm.
You've had an idea. That's always dangerous. What?
It is. No, it's actually, it's a funny aside, and you're gonna hate and love it.
Okay.
Star Wars, typically before Disney bought it out, categorized things, and I thought it was in a dumb way, and it was at the Battle of Yavin. So it was BBY,
Yeah.
ABY. Before the Battle of Yavin, after the Battle of Yavin. And to me, that always bothered me because, like, you should do it from when the Emperor died, because that's when the Empire starts to crumble. But whatever.
Okay. Makes sense.
But BBY absolutely made me think of BBW. And it was my mom's birthday just this last week. And we were all on a Zoom call with the whole family. And I've got Michigan family and Florida family and multiple generations. And so I absolutely dog whistled to my generation. But because as family gets together, they talk about the weather, which when you're in Florida and in Michigan and California, it's just so fascinating. And then they talk about pests, and everybody had a pest story. And my uncle was having trouble with a bat, and he was having trouble, like, catching the bat and stuff like that. And then somebody else had mentioned that they were having trouble with I forget, like mosquitoes were in the wall or something like that, or I didn't quite pay much attention because it's just pests. And then I was like, well, and then there's also wasps. And they say, oh, God, yeah. And they go on and on about wasps. I said, they're especially a problem in Michigan, but, I hear they're problematic everywhere. And my brother gets it, and then I said,
well, yeah, of course your brother gets it. Yeah.
But then, my grandma's there. She's 93. And and I've got several other members of the family who are similarly naive. And so I said, if you guys are looking for pest removal, if you go to Craigslist and you just type in BBW, looking for BBW, you'll get exactly what you need. And that.
So here's the question: did your brother actually have to turn his camera and his mic off?
He does such a good job of no selling things. But you could see the look on his and his wife's face. They knew what I was doing, and one of my cousins,
and that was all the payoff you needed.
Oh yeah, and one of my cousins, he was laughing his ass off, and one of my other cousins, she got it, which I was kind of proud of her. But and just like wanting to see how far the dog on the chain can run, kind of thing with this, So, so I'm hoping that.
Oh,
So, so
evil.
now, unfortunately, before the Battle of Yavin is ruined for me, um,
By I just want to point
by
out, and it's
myself.
your own fault.
Yeah.
You ruined it, just like Star Wars fans have done forever.
Oh, ow, ow. You're not wrong.
Well,
So
okay, not
yeah.
forever, not forever, not forever. Only since the beginning of the newest trilogy, I'm going to say. But
No, that's
no,
just when it was most obvious. But
okay,
people bullied the shit out of Jake Lloyd.
yeah,
As soon
yeah,
as
no,
as
that's true.
soon as it
Yeah,
stopped
okay,
being the empty vessel and George
yeah,
Lucas started filling in the vessel, people had
yeah,
a huge problem with it.
yeah. No, you're right. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
So
Okay, good
anyway,
point.
so
So, original
back to
point
your
stands.
story. Yeah. The
Okay,
Jedi BBW.
so the Jedi could have been, um, you know, the you know the what we saw in the Exar Kun and the Legends of the Jedi stories
Yes.
moved forward by 3,000 years. But what we wind up seeing is the Jedi Order, which
Mm-hmm.
has these very rigid rules and this very strict kind of hierarchy. And,
Right.
the council doesn't like that. And it's not like they hunt heretics down, but
Right.
it's really clear, like, if you run afoul of the council, you're persona non grata, and, stuff just, it makes your life a lot more difficult.
Well, and it also is like way too bureaucratic. Like you have to be a
Oh, and
certain level of master to be able to access the the library at certain levels. Like it's
yeah.
just ridiculous.
And I mean, on a certain level, when you're dealing with, okay, you have an order of, combative wizards, I can kind of understand, like, okay, no, look, we don't want you to hurt yourself or anybody else, like with getting access to stuff that you're not ready for or haven't been trained in how to use responsibly. I can understand that, but I do totally get what you're saying. Is
It's
like,
too
well,
dogmatic.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, no. And so we have this, as you say, very dogmatic, very, very rigid,
Mm-hmm.
very hidebound organization that has this really bizarre, like, quasi official relationship to the Republic government.
Yeah. Like
Like they get deputized to go do shit on behalf of the
yes.
Republic government, and it's like as members of the Jedi Order, we're sending you on this diplomatic mission on, and it's like
To deal with a trade dispute.
to
Eh,
deal with a trade dispute, and it's like, I mean, I can understand how it might be a thing for the Republic to turn to the Order as a non-governmental organization
Mm-hmm.
and say, for example, we need you to send watchmen.
Yeah.
We would like it. We're asking you the favor of, can you send a watchman?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm going back to the Exar Kun saga. Can you send a Jedi watchman to Naboo
Right. Or a
to
mediator. Can you even
yeah, just a
like and
mediator.
a non and one that we both agree on. Like they even talk about that in the books. Joris Sabath, he would insert himself as a mediator. Like
Yeah,
a little too much, but yeah, like if you're going to be a mediator, make it like a real mediator where you
yeah.
are what am I thinking, like you are approved by both groups as a third
Yeah.
party.
You're a neutral. You're a
Yes.
neutral, honest. You're an honest
Yes,
dealer.
you're not an
You know.
agent of one side.
Yeah. You're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when they show up to Naboo,
Mm-hmm.
they're there in a Republic gunship,
Yeah.
like a military vessel.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, wait. I mean, there's all these layers where, like, this relationship doesn't make sense, and
Yeah.
the Order is this very specific thing, and they've taken the idea of non-attachment and detachment and emotionlessness and all of this to this ridiculous kind of extent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's the deal. It would be one thing to say, do not act in anger,
Mm-hmm.
but to say suppress all of your anger, do not be angry, is destructive and unhealthy.
Yes.
Anger gets shit done, man.
Yeah, and
Like
and
like
yeah,
when you, I mean, like to say, when you ignite your lightsaber,
mm-hmm.
you can't do it because you're pissed off.
That would be
Would be
different.
one thing.
Yeah,
Would be one thing. Would be reasonable. But to anyway,
yeah.
according to the 308 rule, if you have a lightsaber and there are slaves, you need to do something about that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Like
and
morally.
and well, if there are slaves and you are on a world where slavery is seen as bad, where it's not just baked into the, like, I kind of am okay. Actually, no, I take it back because Star Wars doesn't have a prime directive. Never mind.
No, Star
Yeah,
Wars does not
Star
have
Wars
a
does
prime
not have a
directive.
prime directive.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit.
So
So you're right. You're right. If you have a lightsaber and there are slaves, you do something about that. And if you don't, it's because you're gonna go get more to go do it the right way or something.
yeah, or like we're literally like the explanation in episode 1 could have been
Mm-hmm.
we are on the run right now.
That would have been so easy.
And if we do anything
Yeah.
to attract undue attention, we could get ourselves killed and the princess killed and all this
Right.
other bad shit's going to happen, and like no, we can't. That's like a catastrophe, and it is disgusting that we can't do anything about it, but right now we just can't.
Right. Yeah. But we will be back.
But we're definitely going to report this to
Mm-hmm.
Republic authorities, and we're going to make sure something gets done about this shit.
Well, they do have a
to
line.
just-
They do have a line in episode 1 where she says, "I can't believe they still have slavery," and she's like, "We're so far from the Republic, they don't care." Shmi says that.
Yeah.
So that takes care of that. But you're right, saying I will be back, or
Yeah.
we will come back and deal with this. But and you could easily, because the writing that he did do was, I didn't come here to do that actually, and it's like, well, motherfucker, like you pay attention to living force, don't you? Like,
Yeah.
how can you be the guy who's always like, just trust your instincts, don't think, just do, and then you turn around and you're like, well, it's not according to my plan, so yeah.
which is like shitty Zen, like, to begin with. But, yeah.
But like,
So-
so yeah, I agree with you,
All right.
and I would say that also they are so, I think deputized is really the best word there. They're so deputized and co-opted by the very government that is ultimately they're sitting there going like, well, we sense a plot to destroy us. There's all these other things that are interfering on some levels, that their position of power is inherently dependent on the government.
Yeah.
By virtue of the fact that they don't just have an annex office in Washington, D.C., they have the Capitol building,
Yeah. So that's what we see when Lucas sits down and codifies, okay, this is what the Jedi Order looks like.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we wind up getting, and it's kind of problematic as all fuck on like a number of levels.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the thing is, I'm going to get into what that actually looks an awful lot like out of history. But first,
I would like to
forward-
furnish a guess on that before you do. So tell me when to guess.
Okay, go ahead and guess now.
Oh, okay. It sounds to me, and again with my very limited knowledge of this period of time, but honestly, it sounds to me like a Franciscan monastery close enough to Rome that they actually get letters.
You're very, very close.
Yay. Okay, cool. Anyway, back
You
to
are very close.
Okay.
So, however,
But
I'm
you want to
actually
put
going to
something
go.
else? Yeah.
I'm gonna put out an alternative idea.
Yeah,
of,
please.
of what Jedi could have looked like. And I gotta talk. So I'm gonna the example I'm going to talk about
Mm-hmm.
is from the Holy Roman Empire
Okay.
in starting in the very late 1400s up into the early 1700s, into the 17th and very early 18th century.
Okay.
And I got to talk a little bit about historic European martial arts before I get there. So, like I mentioned before,
This is like when I say, well, now I have to talk about pro wrestling.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to take up like the rest of the episode with this. I mean, like, a third. of
The
rest of
episode is young.
probably, but yeah. So So in Asian traditions
Mm-hmm.
of martial arts, and I think weapon arts maybe in particular,
Mm-hmm.
but that's kind of a guess. The lineage of schools of martial arts is a really big deal. Um, very much so during the pre-modern period, and even to this day,
Mm-hmm.
practitioners of some arts can get really heated with each other over whether a particular school is legitimate or not, based on whether the line of teaching went from the master to the first student or the second student,
Right.
or how that got handled, which student got the scrolls, which student got, what relic, was
Right.
it passed on from father to son, or was it,
Passed on from
um,
Sifu to student instead
yeah,
of like Sifu to his own son. Yeah.
yeah. And I mentioned that a little bit talking about Nichen Ichiryu
Yeah.
uh, last episode. And so this isn't really like universal, but it's
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of in the background of those arts, and it's in some ways, and the way those lineages kind of develop and the way those arts kind of develop is mirrored in the way that Chinese philosophies kind of developed from Confucianism. You wound up having
Makes sense.
Confucius had all of his students, and then there was like mainline Confucianism,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had another group of students. One of his students, taught somebody who became the teacher to Mo Tzu, who then founded Moism, which took
Right.
Confucianism and said, no, no, the family isn't most important, the state isn't most important, all humanity is most important,
Right.
and pacifism is crucial, and the only good war is a defensive war. And so, like, Moist scholars actually became siege engineers, specifically defensive siege engineers,
Okay.
because of their philosophy's intense belief that the only reason to fight a war was in self defense against an aggressor.
So yeah, logically, the only thing you could do in a war would be yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So and then go another few generations down the line, and you get to Han Feizi,
Mm-hmm.
who develops legalism,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
which winds up which is very clearly a response to Confucianism, but it's been transmitted through 5 or 6 or 8 generations. And Han Feizi basically says Confucius got these things right, but he was basically immoral in that he placed the family over the state. The state is everything. The ruler is everything. And legalism was the philosophy of the first Qin emperor who unified China. And it was an incredibly harsh system that actively hunted down Confucianist scholars
Wow.
because it was like going full Sith. Like
Right.
from a
Yeah.
Confucian standpoint, it was full Palpatine.
So I got a
Uh,
question for you. Like,
yeah.
did Confucian scholars dress a certain way, or was it just like you could tell by the schools that they had?
You could tell by the schools they had.
Okay.
Scholars in general tended to dress a certain way. Confucians had. I mean, to call it a uniform would be a bit much, but yeah, there were traditions and things that they did
Okay.
and they had that were ways of being recognized.
Okay.
And so
So
yeah,
like,
so
and
so Confucian books
mhm.
and scrolls were rounded up and burned en masse. I mean, it was nuts. It was full on several centuries BC,
Mhm.
fascism. Like
And did that lead to a lot of like unrest or instability, or did it actually
oh
stabilize?
it led to the rest of the Qin Emperor's lifetime being peaceful and unified under the crushing heel of the Qin dynasty. And then the Qin Emperor died
Hmm.
of mercury poisoning.
Right. But like,
Uh,
was it like it sounds like though it was super Iron Fist keeping
yes,
everybody happy or calm
no, keeping everybody under control.
under control. Okay. So it was all right. So this anti-Confucian didn't lead to confusion.
Yeah, no,
And
no, no,
the
no.
the Qin Emperor ground everybody under his heel.
Yeah,
Um And then there was a
until
second Chin Emperor. So now you've doubled your Chin Emperors. So they have a double Chin Emperor, grinding everybody under their heel, to the confusion of nobody.
Yes, precisely.
All right.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks. I don't think it was a gold medal. I think it was a quick route to a silver medal.
I'd say so.
Quick to the silver.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Now that one was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
So in the West,
Yes.
in Western martial traditions, there are definitely schools of practice and theory. Lichtenauer, Meyer, and Fiore are kind of three of the biggest names who were authors in the early modern period who wrote fighting manuals in German, because I'm a Meyerite, so everything I do is in German rather than Italian. So Fechtbuch.
Right. That's where they fight to see who can grab the book the quickest.
Yes, precisely.
Yes.
And so each of them had their own system. They had different things that they emphasized. And so hemotypes, more studied than I, can and do have very intense, detailed debates over the strengths and weaknesses of each system, which one is the most authentic, etc.
And they have magnetic weapons because they're made of hemotype.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So polarity is a very important part of any kind of fencing stance.
The
north side, south side of your blade.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
No. So now what's interesting is in the modern era, all of these schools are something that we are working to try to reconstruct. And we're rediscovering things as a community from all of these manuals. And so the intensity of vitriol between Fiore guys and Meyer guys and Lichtenauer guys.
I'm sorry, you're saying Fiore guys.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
Okay. Yeah. No, you're right. I missed it.
Yeah.
It's then the funny thing is they're really hard to miss at tournaments because they all have the spiky hair.
Exactly.
And
they've set themselves on fire just at the bottom of their tunics. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's his forehead, folks.
So the disciples, as it were, of Fiore versus Meyer versus Lichtenauer, have these debates about this stuff. But because we're all trying to take what it is that these guys wrote and kind of rebuild it in practice, we don't have the living tradition of Asian arts to carry the 3 generations ago, that guy fucked our master over. And so, we remember that. And so, we have this, we have this institutional grudge that's like this real rivalry that, I'm not saying is like endemic, but it is part of the lore in those cultures. And it doesn't exist with anything like the same intensity in Western traditions, because there's no chain of memory like that. But there are debates and rivalries, and we give each other a hard time. My fencing instructor, of course, always says, this is a friendly match, so no stabbing, unless the other guy's from an Italian school.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to get into, there's some distinctions in period about stabbing versus slashing that are important, but I'll get to that later. I should note, of course, that of those 3 main schools, Meyer is, of course, the best one, obviously.
Naturally.
I'll give a shout out to the Meyer Freifechter Guild, Region 6. Was ist oben mein Volk? And yeah, I totally know I just butchered the German there, but whatever. What's up, my people?
Apparently the Italian fencers do that regularly, so.
No, they don't. No, they poke holes. They poke.
Okay.
Stabby do them. Italian stuff is a lot more stabby.
Gotcha. Well, and that's why you guys are more able to just kind of endure things, and after an hour, you've defeated them. That's why it's called licked an hour.
Licked an hour. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I have a
So,
question for you.
okay.
You have a good deal of ties to your Scottish heritage.
Yes.
Why didn't you go into any kind of Scottish fencing club or anything like that?
Because
Mm-hmm.
um the short answer, anybody with Scottish heritage in the audience is going to get a laugh out of the short answer, because Culloden, anybody who doesn't have Scottish heritage, that's the battle where the Scottish Highlanders were crushed by the Redcoats,
Okay.
ending the Jacobite rebellion, effectively, and putting an end to the Highland way of life.
Mm.
And the longer version is, there are manuals that talk about fighting with the broadsword specifically,
Mm-hmm.
but the way that a Highlander actually fought with a targ and a dirk and a broadsword,
Mm-hmm. Now, a
is
targ is the shield that has the
the
knife on
shield.
it,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah. And very frequently, what would happen is you'd be gripping, you'd have the shield on your left forearm,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it may or may not have a spike sticking out the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that hand, usually held point downward,
Mm-hmm.
you would then have your dirk,
Right.
which is essentially a short sword.
Mm-hmm.
Like D&D stats call dirk/dagger. A dirk should be a short sword.
Yeah, it's like a long knife.
Yeah, it's a sizable blade.
Yeah.
And so you'd have that inside the shield. So you'd swing the shield to block, and then you could potentially, try to stab with that dirk at the same time.
Sure.
You'd fight with it in very many ways, the same way that Vikings would fight with, or Saxons, I should say, would fight with the seax in an earlier time period, because they're descended. The dirk is descended from the seax.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, those arts were essentially lost.
Okay.
Because everybody who fought that way got crushed under the heel of the British Army, effectively. And when Scots then joined the British Army in order to be allowed to wear tartan as part of their uniform and have that connection to their culture,
Mm-hmm.
they were then taught how to fight like line infantry.
Gotcha.
Which was with a musket and a bayonet, and the Highland charge and broadsword and targ and all that disappeared.
Gotcha.
And the kind of the dirty little secret of HEMA schools is that the biggest differences between all of us aren't like we use different moves. It's what gets emphasized differently between us.
Okay.
There's this vast difference in unarmed martial arts. Like,
Sorry,
the differences.
You just mentioned a part of a penis.
Okay.
Well, I mean, when you're doing the Highland Charge and you show your kilt, you show off your vast deference. So.
Oh, nice.
And you show them your dirk, and it's usually been muddy there, so there's more clay on it. So you're showing off your clay more than anything else.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
And then you're going to go use it on your woman later on, so it's your broadsword.
All right. All right. You're wow. You're in some kind of form tonight. So, but anyway, what I was getting to was, the differences between one school and another school in European arts.
Sure.
Tend much more to be, well, this one is like, no, you're in a fight, use everything. So, like, I'm going to teach you how to do this with the sword, but when you get in close, you're just going to throw the guy to the ground and, beat the shit out of him, because
kick him a lot while he's down.
Yeah, kick him a lot while he's down. Here's the wrestling moves you need to use. Whereas, with others like Italian schools,
Mm-hmm.
emphasize, the point, because it's tends to be faster.
Sure.
And so the differences are emphasis rather than actually like a different art.
Okay.
And so, so there are all these different traditions, but it's really crucial to our subject at hand that throughout Europe there were literally guilds of fencers in early modern Europe. I'm going to focus on two of them right now: the Marksbrüders, and I'm just waiting for that.
Okay.
and the Federfechters.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I do recall there was a conflict between them over the Horst Fechters and the Duck Supers.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank
I was
you.
waiting for it. I knew those were
God.
coming.
How could I not?
So,
like,
yeah, well, yeah, no, I know. So to get to them, I need to talk about the Landsknecht. Are you familiar with who the Landsknechts were?
I think that was a group in a Dr. Seuss book. Is that
Okay.
Sneetches?
So no.
No.
So I'm going to go with no. All right.
It's rare that I see you actually perturbed, and I clearly have gotten a little under your skin with this. Yeah.
So only a little, but
Yeah.
wow, you're in some kind of form tonight. So in the 1480s, the man who was later on going to become the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I,
Okay.
needed a bunch of soldiers because he wanted to give the Belgians and the Dutch a lesson in proper manners. They were making all this noise about their rights and their freedoms, and
leave it to the Dutch to think about rights.
Yeah, like, oh my God. So, and so he needed to go in there and beat the shit out of them. And so he needed a bunch of soldiers. And so the mercenary, in order to get those soldiers, because as a ruler in a feudal state, one of the biggest limitations you have on your ability to raise an army is, how many nobles actually are there in your kingdom at a given time.
Right. People who can actually levy troops for you.
Yeah. And so he just said, no, you know what? I'm sending a call out to all able-bodied men across the empire. I will pay you cashy money to come to join the army and come, teach the Belgians and the Dutch a lesson. And so essentially we see an evolution in the way that military science kind of starts working at this point, because this is the 1480s. So by this time, firearms and gunpowder have been around for a while, but they're still not ubiquitous. They're still not the primary weapon of the common soldier. But what we have seen is more and more and more and more over time, we've seen that massed pikemen have become the kind of the standard of an army is now made up mostly of ordinary soldiers with 12 to 14 foot long sticks with big metal points on the ends of them. And so they're ordinary men. They're not knights. They're not people who have trained from the age of 7 to be horseback military machines. They're not tanks, basically.
Right.
But you now have large armies of men who are fighting for money. Okay?
Do these men, by the way, do they have armor on?
Generally speaking, not very much, if any. In a pike square, you might have you might have somebody with it would depend. Like, there's light infantry and there's heavy infantry. Some of them, the ones that are particularly well equipped, that are particularly like elite, are going to have a cuirass.
Okay.
They might have like a mail vest. Everybody's going to have heavy gauntlets on. Everybody's they may be wearing buff coats.
Okay.
Quilted
at best, usually.
Yeah, quilted or what you might call kind of soft leather armor. And you're going to see, helmets probably more often than not, because you want to protect your brain bucket. But so they're ordinary soldiers, and so they're equipped with whatever the best thing is you can afford a lot of at once. And so they were raised like militia or even as militia.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see a lot of is guilds
Mm-hmm.
forming and sponsoring military units.
Okay.
So there'd be the Landsnacks who were raised by the Butchers Guild. There'd be the Landsnacks who were raised
Wow.
by the Bakers Guild or the Glassmakers Guild. Okay.
Okay.
And so he sends out this call and he gets a huge response, and we have the beginning of the Landsnack tradition. And he has plenty of able-bodied men who are
Mm-hmm.
now willing to go beat up the Flemish and the Hollanders for pay, because like that sounds like fun, right?
Sure.
What he needed next was a group of professionals to train them,
Okay.
because a pike
Mm-hmm.
is actually a pretty complicated weapon to handle. It's 10 to 12 feet long, or
Right.
sometimes longer. And if you're going to handle it in a pike square, you have to know how to move as a unit. You have to know how to, this is the beginning of drill as we know it today
Right.
in any military.
Well,
Everybody would
because you're
step on
industrializing the
foot.
process to some
Yeah.
level. You're democratizing it rather. Instead of you have to, the Romans did this too. Instead of you have to be able to afford to go fight, which means you're going to send your richest out to fight, which means if you're going to go fight, you'd better make it worth it.
Yeah.
Now you can just call up peasants. But the trade-off is you do have to train them. And you do
Yeah.
have to do that. And now your attacking strategies need to be boiled down to the most simplest, easy to teach to large groups of people practice. So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
that you're starting to see drill,
Yeah.
because you didn't see drill in Rome. Well, you saw drill in Rome once you started having a senator outfitting an entire century. Then he's got
Yeah.
to take care of that century.
Yeah.
But when it was just your best citizens, your richest citizens, then you didn't
Yeah.
necessarily have drill because they were expected to do that shit on their own.
Well, when you have enough wealth in reserve that you don't have to dig in the dirt or do a job to survive,
Right.
you can spend the time to
Mhm.
be a full-time warrior.
Yes.
And that's not what, at first anyway, that's not what these guys were.
Right.
Okay. And so now Max has plenty of able-bodied men ready to go do this for him. Needs somebody to train him. And a guild, a fencing guild
Mm-hmm.
called the Brothers of St. Mark had been founded in 1487. And Max granted them the special right to certify masters of the longsword. Okay, they were these guys. This was a group of fencers who had established a reputation as being guys who knew what they were doing.
Okay.
And so Maximilian gave them the imperial license, or the imperial seal,
Mhm.
said, these are my guys for this thing. And it was, if the Marx Brooders,
Mm-hmm.
Brothers of St. Mark,
Mm-hmm.
give you the certificate that you are a master of the longsword, then you know your shit.
So that's 2 layers of bureaucracy right there, though.
Yeah.
He's going to them and he's saying, you are all my certifiers now. Keep up your skills, but also you from now on can certify. And then whoever you certify, they can go around and teach.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's...
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
The Brothers of Saint Mark is the patron saint of furriers. These guys had initially been attached to the Guild of Furriers. Now they're professional swordsmen and masters. If you wanted to get paid as a Doppelsoldner, okay, so now we got to talk about different roles as a Landsknecht. So when you signed on to get paid to go, kill Dutchmen,
Mm-hmm.
you were an ordinary soldier. Your main weapon was a pike,
Mm-hmm.
and you would probably carry a backup short sword that was a relatively straight-bladed slashing short sword.
Okay.
And your primary job in a fight was to stand next to, 300 of your best friends
Mm-hmm.
and essentially fight in much the same way that the Spartans and the Athenians had fought.
Yeah, I was gonna say it
You
sounds like a
know,
phalanx or a maniple.
very very much like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and hit the other pike line and stab and push.
Right.
Okay,
A schiltron.
so what? Well, yes,
Ish. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because
Schiltron.
you're also going to be able to disrupt cavalry charges with
Oh
your
yeah.
pikemen. Yeah.
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
nerfing that.
As
Yeah.
long as you're in good order. Yes.
Right. Right.
And so the thing is now, okay, so if I'm in charge of a bunch of guys with long pointy sticks, and we're going to be running at another group of guys with long pointy sticks, what am I going to do to get myself an advantage over that other group of guys with long pointy sticks? That doesn't involve like setup before the battle. Like what am I going to do to try to win the fight once it actually turns into a fight?
Okay.
Well, the solution the Germans came up with was they had guys named Doppelsoldners, and they were called that because they got double pay.
Okay. Oh, and knowing my Roman history, I can imagine where they were placed.
Right up front.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, not just right up front, way out front.
Yeah.
A Doppelsoldner carried a longsword, something between a longsword and a montante. So in D&D terms, we're talking about something between a bastard sword and a great sword, or two-handed sword, and always wielded with two hands. And your job was to run out ahead of your unit on the battlefield and use that big honking sword to cut the heads off of the enemy's pikes.
Right.
So your buddies are going to be running at them with pointy sticks, and they're just going to have sticks.
They're going to have pool cues.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And you're like, ow, that bruised, and you're all dead.
That really bruised, and you're bleeding out. Yeah, basically. And now, so here's the thing. But, like, how do you get qualified to be a Doppelsoldner? You have to get tested. You actually have to get a certificate showing that you've learned enough about how to use a longsword to be trusted with one.
Can you imagine the professional development seminar for that, though? You're like, Jesus Christ. Look, I already know how to do most of this. Just show me, like, the quick keys that I need to hit so that you can sign my thing at the end. Like, do I really have to sign at the end of the thing, too? Like,
you know what? I'll tell you what. Look, I've done this 3 times before already.
Right.
Like, I got to do this every other year. So, like, I'll just be in the back, reading Dante.
Yeah.
Like, writing
I'm going to work on my costume for the sex party after, because clearly all of you are also furriers. So, yeah.
Furriers, not furries. Furriers.
Oh. So I'm going to work on my Wookiee costume because it's furrier.
Yeah. Nice. Well done. Yeah. Well done. So anyway, if you wanted to get that job, because, like, who wouldn't, right?
Right. Double the pay.
Crazy. Yeah. Well, yeah. If you were desperate or crazy enough to want that job, you had to go through.
You also have a culture that's created of, like, that position is the bravest position, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Being at the front like that, like, oh, look at that guy. He's the Romans called it the first spear. Mm-hmm. And that is some serious fucking honor, And yes, you get double pay. But
Primus Pilum?
Yeah, Primus Pilum.
Primus Pilum. Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, no trouble getting laid ever.
No. Well, because you've got the best furrier outfit there is. So,
and so also, since we're talking about Landsknecht and, getting laid, it's worth noting that the tradition or the fashion that we see developing into the 1500s of puffed and slashed clothing, where you have multiple layers, with big puffy sleeves, and then you've got another sleeve underneath that, and you've got cuts in it to show off the interior fabric. that's actually developed from Landsknecht, because running off into battle and their clothes getting fucked up.
That's what I had a feeling. Yeah. That makes sense.
It's so let's talk about mating plumage, shall we?
No shit. Wow.
So, and also, commentary from the time period. Churchman actually complained about how garish and loud the colors were.
Oh, I remember that.
These
Yeah.
guys wore.
Yes.
You know, it's unseemly and ungodly, and oh my, and well, yeah, no, I'm making enough money I can afford, fancy clothes. I'm going to show off, man.
Yeah. I'm the original cross color shirts,
Kind of, yeah, pretty much. And so if you wanted to get a certificate in order to teach other people as a fencing master, you wanted to make a living doing that, you had to get certified as a master by the Marksbrüder. And if you wanted to compete in a fencing tournament to win some prize money, which is, the nightly tournament democratized.
Right.
The people holding the tournaments were the Marksbrüders.
So they're running everything martial in that area. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So Maximilian got a reliable professional group of weapons masters to train his soldiers, and not just in the sword, but also in the poleaxe, the rapier.
I think they're called the Polish.
Knife fighting.
I don't think that's the proper term.
No.
Okay, so
no, you're right.
How many halberds does it take to screw in a light bulb? So, speaking of garish clothing, by the way, my students, I always show them, I always tell them, I'm like, okay, on your phones right now, because we talk about Caesar invading Helvetia and all this. I always tell them, like, they are badass fighters, and they have a history of badass fighting for the last 2,000 years. And I say, if you don't believe me, look up the Vatican Guard. Look up the Swiss Guard of the Vatican. Recognize that those were the baddest asses in the continent. And they all look them up. They're like, what the fuck kind of clothing are they wearing? I'm like, they can do that because they will whoop your ass. And I said, and the reason that they whoop your ass, I said, look at that weapon. And they look at it and they're like, oh, that's really tall. I'm like, not only that, but look at it. It's got an axe, and it's got a spike, and it's got a hammer, and it's got a magnifying glass and a fork and a corkscrew. And and they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's a Swiss Army polearm. And they're just like, God damn it.
So they respond the same way that everybody else does.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, but yeah, no, the Vatican Guard were, as a matter of fact, like the baddest of the baddest, the hardest, the hard. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, back to your disparaging comments on people of Eastern European descent.
No, man. No.
You said poleaxe.
Okay.
Okay, for the record, Ed has nothing wrong or nothing against the Polish people.
No,
and
not at all.
He has no problem with that. He was calling out a weapon called the pole-axe.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because it's an axe on a long stick. So anyway, they were the teaching masters with the greatest cachet in the Holy Roman Empire. And they wound up teaching an awful lot of people how to fence. Like, based on what we think of today, it's actually a surprisingly large number.
Okay.
Because if you lived in a town, as an able-bodied man, you were expected to fight to defend your home in the militia.
Okay.
Like, as a citizen of a town in the Holy Roman Empire, if you were able-bodied, between the age of 15 and 50,
yeah.
You were in the militia, and if the town came under attack, you were going to go to the armory, you were going to grab
right.
a pole arm, and or a crossbow, and man the walls and whatever all. If you wanted to get some pocket money and see the world, you'd sign up as a Landsknecht and get paid as a full-time soldier. Even if you weren't going anywhere, and even if your community wasn't under attack, as a member of the community in one of these towns in the Holy Roman Empire, you were expected to act as a night watchman periodically.
Right.
Like, that was a job.
Yeah.
That was a job that got passed around amongst the citizenry.
Right.
And you had to know how the right end of which one was the right end of a weapon to point at the other guy. You had to know how to you were expected as a
Mm-hmm.
dude to at least know a little bit about how to handle a sword. And there were actually laws on the books because of this in different towns, listing penalties
Mm-hmm.
for male citizens who were not able to equip themselves to do these things.
Okay.
So you'd face a financial civil penalty for not owning a sword, and if you're going to own it, then you better know how to use it.
So it's the original poll tax.
Yes, in a way. So now, moreover, getting into a fight with a sword
Mm-hmm.
wasn't always a jailing offense.
Okay.
So we have to remember when we're talking about these time periods, we are talking about a very different culture and very different attitudes toward violence in
Yes.
particular in this
Yes.
context. The threshold of violence was much lower.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The value of
and
life was lower too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, and so in a city in Germany, well,
Mm-hmm.
modern day Germany, Prussia, Saxony, any of those,
All the
elector
principates.
duchies,
Yeah.
any of the principates. Generally speaking, if you got into a fight and somebody got hit in the head with a sword,
Mm-hmm.
um, there might be a fine.
Yeah, a weregeld.
But yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
effectively, yeah. It was somewhat more codified by this time than Weregate, but it was basically the same kind of idea.
Right.
And if you got into a fight with a dude and somebody died,
Right.
then there were very specific circumstances of what actually constituted murder versus, well, you got in a fight
These
and
things
that's what
happen.
happens.
Yeah.
And one of the distinctions that's really important is, you'll remember I said don't stab them unless they're an Italian.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually something Meyer says in his fencing manual, is when we're fighting amongst each other as Germans, we want to use the edge rather than the point, because the edge is less inherently lethal.
Right. Your intent is a block or perhaps to push someone away. Whereas if you're stabbing someone, you're trying to enter them. You are
Yes.
trying to
Yeah.
fix them through. Yeah. That makes
Yes.
sense.
And
That makes sense.
and codified into law
Mm-hmm.
in some places was the idea that if the wound that killed somebody
Mm-hmm.
was a slashing wound,
Mm-hmm.
then the threshold was the legal threshold you'd crossed was lower than if it was a stabbing wound. If you wound up stabbing somebody to death,
Mm-hmm.
you had to prove, or have witnesses to prove for you, to state for you, that it was in self-defense. And one of the things that would be a deal was, a fight would start, and you'd shout peace, and you'd shout peace again, and
Mm-hmm.
you'd shout peace a third time. And if they didn't back the fuck off after you shouted peace a third time,
Mm-hmm.
then legally you could be considered in defense of your life when you said, all right, well, then in that case, it's the point for you.
Right. And that's where we get the idea, because they could still try to sue you, but I said peace 3 times, so it's a 3-piece
Yeah.
suit.
Oh, nicely done.
Thank you. Now, I would also point out that stabbing is a much more surreptitious act. It's something that anybody can do. Slashing takes some training, so there's a bit of let's honor the art of it kind of thing. And slashing, everybody can see. Stabbing is you could hit anybody from behind with that. It's much harder to block a stab when you're in close quarters like that. I think about Appalachia with this, and I mean, they're big on knives too, but they talk about, I'm just going to do a little sticking. And they'll stab a guy 30, 40 times before he gets to the ground. But that's Appalachia.
Yeah. Well, in later fighting manuals,
Mm-hmm.
when large scale militaries were the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, we need to train all of our guys in, like, all of our cavalrymen need to know how to use a cavalry sword.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have a standardized, this is the English manual or the British manual for cavalry fighting.
Right.
One of the things that became a truism was the point beats the edge.
Yes.
Because mechanically it's much faster to drive the point home than it is to, you inherently kind of telegraph your move
with the edge
when you're slashing.
Yes.
Even if you're lightning quick, somebody who is equally lightning quick is going to see what you're doing. Whereas with a point, you can, you
can get in there. Yeah. And also, if you push someone off their center line with a stab, they're still going to probably stab you. Like, yes. it's
yes.
a stab's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So in any event, and so there's this kind of assumption, in our society, generally speaking, the number of people who are really trained in how to use a weapon,
mm-hmm.
I mean, here in the United States, we're aberrant from the rest of the world, but the number of people still, even in the, gun crazy United States, the number of people that are really trained
right
in how to effectively use a combat weapon is very, very small.
True.
The number of people who knew at least a little bit about fighting with a sword in early modern Europe was much, much higher as a percentage of the population because of what I'm just talking about.
Right.
And so the preeminent school for learning all of this stuff
mm-hmm.
for a century were the Marxbrüders.
Okay.
They were the organization, and their members of the Brotherhood of St. Mark would, travel to a town
mm-hmm.
and demonstrate, look,
here's what we do.
Three or four who are the best of your guys, send them at me, here we go, and I'll,
mm-hmm.
Fend them off and whatever, and then get a license from the town council to open up a fencing school, and that was what they did.
Okay.
Now, they were not a monopoly.
Okay.
There were free fencers or free fighters who were not tied directly to the Marxbrüder. They did practice their arts. They did teach people. But having a certificate from the Marxbrüder made it a lot easier to get a town council to give you a license because you were affiliated with the Cadillac of schools. So you had the imperial imprimatur.
I was going to say, you also have like the empire's backing. You had governmental backing on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, important distinction.
Mm-hmm.
You had a governmental recognition
mm-hmm.
and a license from the government, but the emperor didn't pay them anything. The emperor didn't provide them with the buildings that they had their schools in. They were recognized by the emperor as these are the masters,
mm-hmm.
and legally speaking, they have this privilege. But they were not agents of the emperor.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
I think so.
They were not tied to the imperial authority. They were individually imperial subjects,
mm-hmm.
but the organization of the Marxbrüder was not a part of the court of the emperor. They were not a part of the army, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm thinking back to what this original the point of this podcast is, and yes, that makes a lot of sense.
It's a very important distinction from
the
Jedi. Also, they are named for Saint Mark,
mm-hmm.
but they're not in any way, shape, or form a religious order. They're named for the patron of what was, the Furriers Guild. And they had an affiliation with, St. Mary also, but
mm-hmm.
that's because almost any kind of big organization like that in the early modern period did.
Right.
And so what they did was not mystical. It was not religious. It was very strictly, look, we're going to teach you how to fight with a sword,
mm-hmm.
and you're going to be a burgher. You're going to be a merchant. You're going to be whatever your job is,
mm-hmm.
but you're also going to know how to fight with a sword. And if you decide you want to become one of the Brotherhood of St. Mark, then we're going to really teach you how to do this, and you're going to become a master.
Okay.
So that was the Marx-Brüders. And then about a century after their founding in 1575, the Frankfurt Council gives license to an upstart fencing guild originally from Prague called the Federfechter, or Feather Fighters. And of course, the Marx-Brüder objected strenuously to this whole thing. But the Marx-Brüder, of course, had been affiliated with St. Mark, and the furriers, the Federfechter, were associated with St. Vitus, who was the patron of scribes.
Okay.
Which is where Feather Fighters comes from.
Right, because the
quills.
Yeah. So was the pen mightier than the sword?
The Federfectors would probably argue it was a 50-50 thing.
Okay.
And so the two guilds maintained a not always friendly rivalry well into the 17th century. And we do find that there were high-ranking masters from each one of these organizations that had positions at the courts of the Holy Roman Emperors into the 1600s, into, the late 1600s, early 1700s. But again, they had members of these organizations were part of the court, but those guys were consulted as being, well, you're a high-ranking member of the Federfechter. What is your opinion on this matter of swordsmanship, honor, dueling, whatever?
Right.
It wasn't, I am sending you as, go to the Federfechter Council and go, do this thing. And so, if that had been what the Jedi looked like, then it could have been, okay, look, if you're force sensitive, these are the guys to go train you.
Right.
And we can train you to control your powers. We can train you how to do these things, how to be a healer, how to be, a diplomat, how to be, how to use these things for your community, how to do all this. And then if you really want to, and you decide that you really want to commit yourself to, no, this is what I'm going to be, then you can be a Jedi.
Right.
And this is what that's going to mean. And this is how that's going to look. And imagine the stories we could have gotten out of that.
Oh yeah.
He's studied under the Jedi. He knows how to do these things, but everybody in the community knows him as,
a moisture farmer.
Yeah, counselor.
Like,
yeah. But that isn't what we got from Lucas.
Right.
Instead, he saw Jidageki, saw knight errantry, and got stuck on night.
Yeah.
And we got a Jedi Order that looks like a Funhouse mirror version of the Knights Templar.
That is a lot to unpack, and I would like us to have a full episode to do that.
Okay.
So why don't we stop it there?
All right.
And bring it back for the next week's episode, because I studied a lot about the Templars when I was just barely a grad student. So it'll be fun to see what I've forgotten. So if anybody wants to argue with you about the Meyer Lansky School of Pikemen, I don't remember names as well. Where can they find you on the social medias?
Oh Lord. Okay, so if you want to get Italian on me and stab me virtually over stuff I've undoubtedly gotten wrong, then you can find me on Twitter at ehblaylock. And you can find me on Instagram at Mr. Blaylock. If you want to take issue with the egregious level of hideous punning that got done in this particular episode, you can yell at both of us, which wouldn't quite be fair, but you can still do it at Geek History Time on Twitter. And now if they want to yell at you over it, which would be fair, where can they find you?
They can find me on Insta and Twitter at DaHarmony. 2 H's in the middle. Duh Harmony. You can also find me every Tuesday night on twitch.tv/Capital Puns. It's been 4 years in the running. Myself and Daniel Humberger and Mark Berg, two Sacramento local comedians, put on a pun tournament for your enjoyment. Get on there and suggest things to us, and we will make you laugh even harder than Ed hit his head tonight. So that's where you can find me and find us. All right. Well, for a Geek History of Time, I'm Damian Harmony.
And I'm Ed Blaylock. And until next time, remember, fear leads to hatred leads to suffering, and suffering leads to, I don't know how to end this.